What started out as my intention to interview maybe 14 people, maybe 15 people, turned out into a year-long project where I interviewed 72 people from all different cultures and races and socioeconomic statuses. They lived all over the city. And it was from those interviews that the idea around Kin was born. At least that was part of it, right? The other part was that I do this work for a living. So I'm a partner at P3 Development Group, and we work with clients who are seeking to drive equitable and inclusive change. And so I saw people spinning their wheels inside of this work, spinning their wheels inside of their equity work, inside of their inclusion work. And so really start to get really curious about what is the solution? How can we do this work differently? How can we do this work at the human level in a way that will actually start to connect us instead of divide us? I'd been struggling with a name, and I reached out to one of my friends and I described the project to her. And she said, oh, it's like by the end, you're like kin or kinfolk. And I was like, oh yeah, that's it. That's exactly what it is. So that's where the name came from. The Kin Universe is very intentionally designed based on not only what I heard from the Belonging Project, but what I was seeking or seeing in my work. And so what I was seeing was that we have a lot of conversations about race in Milwaukee, like a ton. We talk about race all the time because the disparities are so pronounced. So you can't not talk about it. But what I would see in my work, in my work in the community, is that people were talking about race, but they were only having about 10, maybe 15% of the conversation. They were only saying a very small portion of what was actually on their mind. So I would see people in a meeting and then come out of that conversation and they'll be like, what they really needed to know was this, or, what I really wanted to say was this. And so the idea behind the Kin Universe is that you can get to a point where you at least begin to have the real conversation. And so that you're working on a connection and a relationship that's authentic and will get you to a point, we're kind of hardwiring or fast forwarding relationship in order to be able to have the real conversations with each other. The content, the questions increase in vulnerability with each question set. So 1 is a little vulnerable, not too vulnerable, but by 5 you're having really vulnerable conversations. And then the 6th conversation, you co-create a conversation guide with your partner that allows both of you to propose 10 questions, and the other partner, your partner, gets to choose which questions that they would be willing to speak about off the list. And so this is the conversation where you are able to propose questions to deal with race or with your difference or with culture. This is the point in your kin journey where hopefully there's enough of a relationship built where you can have the real conversation. And the reflection piece is all about, I'm a big believer, so I'm a journaler, I'm a big believer in processing and reflecting on pretty much everything that happens in my life. But I feel like oftentimes we don't slow down enough to process or reflect. And that's kind of the mechanism that forces the participants to slow down and reflect on the conversation they actually have. So I think all too often that people have an imposter kind of complex, right? Like, if they only knew me, they wouldn't love me. Or if they only knew me, if you knew this about me, you wouldn't be friends. And so you wouldn't be friends with me. And so the idea is that by chipping away at those things a little bit by a little bit, we're actually providing people the opportunity to have conversations where they're seen. And so it's not that we're providing some kind of magic pill in order for people to be authentic. It's that we're taking away the things that usually get in the way of us being authentic, right? So we're taking away the power dynamics, and we're taking away kind of the romance element, the things where you kind of put on a show, right? We're taking away all the things in your life where you have to put on a show for someone, and this is just a stranger who has agreed to be vulnerable with you. And then we're providing you with the question guide, the opportunity to chip away at these things that prevent you from being authentic, to actually tell your story and be seen by another human being. And by doing that, we provide people the opportunity to show up as their full authentic selves. In order to successfully reduce prejudice in social contact, that there needs to be prolonged contact, number one, so it can't be just this one-off conversation that we have. And that two, there need to be equal footing, equal power footing. So you need to remove kind of the dynamics, like I was saying earlier, that create an imbalance in power. Everyone in the Kin universe is different, but they all have a few things in common. So I think, one, they have done some of their own work, done some of their own work on self. They have an awareness around kind of the imbalance and power dynamics in our society, and they're ready and willing to learn and hear other perspectives and other ideas that may be different from their own.